Well, welcome back to another edition of Classic Model Trains. I'm Ron. I've had a few people ask me to do a layout and studio tour, so it's taken me a while to kind of get around to doing this because I figured I had to have a bit of a following that, cared enough to want to see the behind the scenes stuff and know why I'm doing what I'm doing to be able to share this with. Now that I think that I've got 12 or 13 people out there that really enjoyed the heck out of my videos, I guess it's now a really great time to make a layout, history, and a tour of my little cabin studio here. As with most model railroaders, I believe that my interest began when my dad was interested in model trains. Back in 1973, he had set up an 027 layout all over the kitchen floor. This thing took up the entire kitchen. There was tracks and switches and cars everywhere. And just one day I showed up and there it was. I wasn't even in kindergarten yet. And I'm like, what in the world? I didn't even know he was collecting these trains. He kept them in boxes somewhere, and these would show up. He did this a few times that I can remember, and it'd be set up for the entire weekend all over the kitchen. And then it was gone by Sunday night. We moved around a lot, and each different house that we had, there was always an area that had a small layout in it that we'd play trains with. By 1980, we had a very large house with a very large unfinished basement in it, and it allowed a layout to be set up and stay up permanently. He ended up building a really nice plywood U-shaped layout, 8 foot by 16 feet. And I had my HO on one end and the 027 was on the other end. But by 1983, we were going to move once again, so Dad sold off all the trains. And that pretty much ended my interest in model trains at that time because I got interested into motorcycles, cars, and of course, girls. My model railroading passion lay dormant for many, many years. And finally I was able to reignite it in the early spring of 2021 when I found a large collection for sale on Craigslist. I purchased it, sat around here for about 4 months until I got around to finally getting a layout set up. I'll show you the little history of the cabin that I've got the layout in and of the building of the layout.
This is the cabin about a year ago, but it started out much different. Hand mixed some concrete for the footings. The little lady kept me well fed and watered and put in a lot of manual labor towards the job. Framed up the 12 by 20 foot floor joists. Spent nights and weekends framing up the walls, roof, and dormers, rushing to get it closed in before wintertime hit. The following spring, the deck roof, deck, and wood log railings were installed. The little lady used her patience and painting skills and sealed all the wooden surfaces. And this is what it looked like after major construction and painting was completed. As layouts go, you have to have a space to put them in. I have this 12 by 20 cabin I built and was using it as an office for my business. Figured I could share the space with a layout so the inside remodel begins. A quick trip to the lumber yard. The L-girder framing begins.
Hey fellers, come over here closer. Gotta get in real close down here. Did you notice in the last shot that my legs weren't on the outside of my layout? No, they're only 2 feet wide, the two legs. The upper piece is 4 feet long. That way I can walk around on the side here and my toes don't hit these legs. And also, it makes the bridge span a little bit different. If you've got two legs on the outside of a 4 foot span of plywood, you got 4 feet in between your supporting structures. Over time it could sag or be weak over here. When you got your legs only 2 feet apart and you've got 4 foot on top of it, there's just a foot of overhang on each one that holds the whole thing up. It makes it more rigid. If I wanted to put drapes underneath here, they could be set back in a little bit too. So legs, they're on the inside. The outer edge, it's on the outside.
3/4 inch plywood for the benchwork top, half flat like a table, and the other half cookie cutter. I built what's called a folded dog bone layout. A few weeks was spent laying out the track and installing cork, road base, and track. 6 weeks later, I hammered the golden spike. I was able to start fine-tuning the track. The most noticeable problem was the grade was too steep for some of the cheaper locos I knew I would be running. re-engineered the tunnel loop portion and sank it into the layout 1.25 inches, and stretched the grade out on the upper part to achieve a 1/4 inch per foot grade. Comes out to just a bit over 2%. Many of you might have seen in my earlier videos the layout was very sparse. I figured it was time to fill in the large gaps. Using old beer boxes cut into strips, I basket weaved the terrain grade changes in and used hot glue to hold into place. Once I was happy, I used 2 layers of plaster cloth to fill in the strips and then 2 coats of Sculptamold to cover up the plaster cloth. I was pretty much just experimenting with these techniques, having never done them before. At the slightest sign that it looked bad, I was ready to tear it all out. I was very happy with the results, so I carried on and foamed in the top of my mountain and finished up the west end of the hilly area.
Watch this dude spray paint his mountains with a water bottle full of thinned out acrylic paint. I used 1 cup of water, 2 capfuls of the acrylic paint, mixed it up real good. And this is the first time I've ever tried seeing how this works. It sure looked like it worked good on the video, so I guess I'll give her hell on mine over here. See what it does. I've just got kind of a brownish color in here just to see how. Well, I've seen other things that don't work so good, but this actually took 2 minutes and 45 seconds from the time I started this video to do that. Let it dry, see what it looks like, spray a lighter color on it for the next one. And I'm gonna try some burnt umber on it, a little bit darker of a color, see what happens. That other color is a little.
I think the mountains came out quite nice, and this probably couldn't have took more than 10 minutes time total to paint this. I would work on the layout in between making repair videos. It was a very slow process. I just knew it was time to start assembling all these model buildings I had. I watched a lot of YouTube videos on how to paint marble, paint brick mortar lines, and, well, pretty much everything else. And it came out with some pretty nice looking buildings. Finished up my engine shed and remodeled the stockyard to accommodate a small engine facility. I was very fearful about building the downtown area. I had a hard time committing to what I liked. I knew I needed to do something to it so it would look nicer on camera. Once again, I used thinned out acrylic paint in a water spray bottle to get some color over the plywood. 3 colors were used, and they were all applied while earlier colors were still wet. A light mist of plain water was used to blend all the colors together. Now that the base color was applied, and I maybe decided on a downtown footprint I liked, it's time to put in some streets. Taped off the shapes I desired and hand painted in the black. Didn't like pure black roads, so I taped off everything else and used my spray bottle of acrylic watered down paint and put in 3 shades of grays on the road. Still not happy with the look. It was too shiny. I rubbed some drywall powder onto the roads to dull them up. And I come up with this. Looks pretty good to me. Just have to spend some time and paint some lines. The little lady came out and she helped me plant some trees all over the place.
Well, as far as the studio goes, let me show you guys around a little bit. This is usually the lighting that I use when I am filming. And then I've also got work lights. Let me fire those up and show you what it looks like when I'm not filming. Not quite as fancy looking, but it gets the job done when you're trying to get the job done. I used to do commercial sound and lighting reinforcement for about 20 years back in the day, providing sound and audio for touring rock bands. So I've got some history in entertainment lighting, but I don't have a lot of history in studio or film lighting. I know just enough to be kind of dangerous. I've got some LED color changing light bulbs up here that I use that shines on the train display. It's one of these cheap little monster things, and you just push the little button and it'll make a different color for you and just gives a highlight for the layout over here on the back. The fluorescent lights are installed because it's unbelievably dark in here when I'm trying to work with my old 54-year-old eyes. I use 2 lights up in front at different angles for the front light. They're 5,000 degree Kelvin, warmer, brighter light. And then the ones over here are called high side lights. And then they separate me from the background. These are 3,000 degrees Kelvin, so they put out more of a bluer colored light. Makes you just kind of stand out a little better. Plus there's also a light on my camera rig to illuminate my face up a little bit. I didn't spend a bunch on film lights because they're expensive. So, and I didn't have that much money at the time. So I hope using these, the plan is as time goes by to get some more decent film lights that have more features to them. But of course I want expensive ones that are really feature heavy, and you know, I have to panhandle some more, mow some more grass in order to afford those. This is what my video rig looks like. It's just an iPhone 8 inside one of these little handheld things, and then I've got my light that mounts on top, and this is either used freehand or it's sitting on a tripod like it is right now. So nice and kind of simple. I did have a larger camera that I'd put together way before I started YouTubing, and cameras are fun because they're like AR-15s. You can just accessorize and accessorize and accessorize them. But a little big for shooting little tiny models. So the thing I like about the iPhone is when you shoot the video footage, you use what they call AirDrop, which loads into the iMac, and it just wirelessly over Bluetooth puts the image in the computer, goes into iMovie, start editing. So I don't have to remove cards, plug cards in, or do anything like that. It's just simple: shoot it, put it in, edit it, look at it. You decide you need another shot, shoot it again, AirDrop it in there. It is so fast and so easy shooting with an iPhone, editing with iMovie on an iMac. You see this, fellers? Right over here is where all the magic takes place. You're probably quite used to seeing an image which looks, you know, a lot like this as I'm working on these things. The way that I do this is I've got a camera holder mounted up on the shelf above me, and I've got more lights, studio lights. There's a total of 3 of them over here to eliminate the shadows. Let me turn on this other light right here on my camera too. Lighting. Get some good lighting out there, fellers. That way we can see what you're doing. Have a camera that's mounted up above, so when you're working on these things, you know, we got a nice steady shot. Can see what's going on. This image would look a lot like this. Hopefully you guys like the fact that I've got this well lit up. You can see what's doing. Also, don't do unnecessary zooms. Get in there on your editing. Get there on your editing software over here, and use the zoom on it. And click in and out with your zooms. Don't use a power lens and slowly zoom in and slowly zoom back out, because it takes up time. Get in there, bring a close-up shot, go back to an outside shot. You know, what I did is I spent a lot of time watching filmmaking on YouTube to figure out better ways to shoot video and make better video. See, I'll give you a good example. Here's the locomotive. Now here's a close-up of the locomotive. Here's another wide shot again. See, you can just edit that so nice and fast instead of slowly zooming in and slowly zooming back out. Just get in there and get her done. One of the more important things to have when you're working on your locomotives is you got to have your toolbox set up with all your tools in it so you can get to things nice and fast, keep all your stuff separated. And then there's also a completely other different toolbox, which is built in over here under the layout, which raised on Old Milwaukee and mother's milk. One of the more important features of this here cabin layout is the fact that it does happen to have its own bathroom. So while you're busy drinking wobbly pops, working on your trains, you've got your own toilet and hot and cold running water. A lot of people like to see close-ups of this train display that I've got back here. I suppose I've been collecting for maybe a year and a couple months right now. So I don't know if, you know, people just kind of want to see what's up there, I suppose. Kind of a quick little rundown. Trying to collect every Tyco locomotive that's ever been made. I don't know why. I guess because they're cheap, so you can acquire a lot of them. And eventually I'll have them all, and then I don't have to collect them anymore. So not that, you know, we all know that Tyco's not the best running locomotives out there, but they are still just fun to have something to do. I take every one of them and I make these tags, and I find the model number of what they are, and I find out what years they were made, and I figure out what locomotive that it is, and I make these little tags. Here, I'll show you. I shot some video of how I make these. So that way everyone is labeled. So sometimes I forget what they are, or I don't know what they are, and at least this way I can always remember what they are. It's taken me so long to come up with this. Apparently I need to fix that. I was going to light it, and I wanted to divide all the individual rooms up, so when you light it at nighttime, certain windows would come up. That takes a lot of work. Same with this big building back here. I didn't glue the back half on because I wanted to get inside there, glue in floors and a couple walls, so at nighttime I can light it up. But man, it's taken me so long to work on this end, and I don't know what to do with this end. Of course, you could tell that maybe I was going to make a logging layout with it. Well, that model takes up a lot of space. Oh, look, I could do a mining thing if I change my mountain around a little bit. Yep, I could. I am absolutely stuck on this end over here, what to do with it. So that's why when the trains run around, it looks like this. I guess the least I can do is paint the ground. Paint the brown, paint the green on it. Now that's not a permanent, because I might change this whole thing around, and I don't want to glue grass down just to maybe scrape it all off. But at least this will give me some color until I truly decide what I want to do with it. If you guys got any ideas what I could do with this little area up here, a small industry, put it in the comments down below. Boy, because I could sure use some help. I am just lost on what to do with this. You ever notice that when you see this kind of shot, that you're kind of supposed to look sad? About this ring light. It's the first time I ever had a chance to use it. I see train people. Thanks so much for watching the video. Please consider subscribing. Give it a thumbs up, give it a like. Throw some comments down below. I love hearing from everybody out there. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.